My latest short horror film should have taken 6 months to produce, but instead it took over 2 years. It has easily become the most difficult short film of my career. So here's what happened, what went wrong, and how we finally made my film, Vice Grip. So it's early 2022, and after receiving such positive feedback on both of my short horror films, I knew I wanted to make a third and possibly final film centered around nightmares. I had this concept early on about a guy who was repeatedly failing at becoming a lucid dreamer. Problem was, that's a concept, not a story, folks. Around this same time, I found out my wife and I were going to be having a new daughter. Needless to say, I was thrilled. I was constantly thinking about what she'd be like and who she'd grow up to be. And then one morning at church, our pastor shared a disturbing data set. Young girls surveyed today listed being an influencer as their most desired career choice. What? This was deeply troubling for me. The world doesn't need any more internet celebrities, but this was when the story came into focus for Vice Grip. Centered around a young woman who dreams of being famous, but is instead haunted by something controlling her. I went to work on the script, and after reading it, I didn't really like it. Something just felt off about it. It felt as if it was too unorthodox or abstract to work as a conventional horror film. Then something very unexpected happened. Having been very impressed by the performance and massive response to my short films, my employer, Bruce Clay, approached me with the idea of the company co-sponsoring the next one with some ad placement. Excuse me? Yeah! I was floored by this. Because of this opportunity, I immediately shelved Vice Grip to focus on new ideas that would be much better, in theory at least. The new plan was to brainstorm while my life adjusted to my daughter being born. Then Bruce approached me and said, "How about you produce a horror commercial for the company as well?"
What?
Now, I chronicled this whole experience in another video, but in the end, I produced and directed 4 commercials for Bruce Clay Incorporated over the next 7 months. And at the same time as all of this, I was also writing a feature-length script, but that's a whole other story. So I really hadn't spent much time developing this next short film. I'm busy! It wasn't until spring 2023 that I put my foot down and said,
"Let's do it. It's go time."
So I came up with 3 different ideas that could all be proof of concepts for a feature film, and I just needed to choose the best one. I worked on each script separately, trying to develop both the short films and how their features could expand from them. And of course, this took months. There were many conversations with my production team about how we could shoot these shorts, including even doing several location scouts. But one by one, each of these 3 ideas just fell apart. Why? Each of the scripts were either just way outside the budget, they were too narratively similar to other films, or they just simply needed more work. But after so many false starts, I knew I needed to reset my expectations. That's when I reopened Vice Grip for another read-through, and for some reason, I liked it a lot more than I remembered. Yeah, it needed some polishing for sure, but there was something there. The whole concept and story enticed me, and from a marketing standpoint, I liked the idea of completing my short horror film trilogy about nightmares. Plus, this story was inspired by my concerns for my own daughter, so it had a personal element to it. I then decided this was it. This was going to be the next short film, as it was always meant to be.
I'm telling you, this is it!
Now, there is one creative decision I made early on that turned what I thought would make this film a walk in the park into the most challenging short film of my career. The main protagonist does not speak.
All I'm saying, they're gonna get a... Look.
I just couldn't think of a reason why this character would speak. I thought it made sense to make the character somebody who longs for attention but is still searching for her own voice.
Who am I? What am I?
But this key decision made the film fundamentally risky because it was now a film that would be more style over substance. It was probably going to be more atmospheric, and the pressure would need to be placed on the cinematography, the editing, sound design, and the music. But I like a challenge, so I thought,
Let's do it!
Pre-production began in July 2023, and we immediately started location scouting. Tagging along was my friend and go-to cinematographer, Josh Nitschke, and we found a house that was absolutely perfect. It had everything we wanted, and it came at a great price. But a week later, the owner tells us he accidentally gave up our shoot dates to somebody else. Dang it! So luckily, we did find another home in the Encino area, and it was pretty spectacular. Of course, we reached out to many of our previous crew members, but all but 2 of them weren't available this time around.
Great!
This meant we'd essentially need to find a brand new team. We got some people to sign on, but then a few dropped out just weeks before the shoot. But we did end up getting some good referrals, and fortunately we ended up securing a fantastic crew. For the cast, it was surprisingly challenging to find the lead for the film because how do you audition for a character who doesn't say anything? But then enters Lana Spring. Lana was a relative newcomer, but she just nailed the audition. I told her early on that this was a very physically demanding role, but she was game for everything, including doing some intense stunts.
The job never stops.
Having her on board made the entire set much more fun and lively, and I'm just very grateful for her contributions to the film.
Dillon is super awesome and a great director.
But of course, in a horror film, the main question is, what's the monster? For this film, I actually took that question literally and applied it to the character of the Gripper. The goal was to keep the look of this monster to be more mysterious, not just because it makes it creepier, but because I didn't want it to be oversimplified as, oh, it's just this kind of creature. For the Gripper's face, we did the same thing we did for Don't Hide. We just found a really creepy mask online that we could apply subtle facial movement in post-production. But the really challenging part was figuring out what to do about the Gripper's hands. So I came up with this idea of the Gripper having gray hands with lace gloves. When it came time to shoot the very first scene with the Gripper, we placed Anna's painted hand within the frame and asked the crew if they liked it with or without the gloves. And it was a unanimous vote to go with the gloves. So that's what we went with.
Well, that was easy.
Overall, the shoot went pretty well, but it was very exhausting due to the amount of setups we were aiming to get. We battled extreme heat, mosquitoes, incredibly tight spaces, freezing water, but we got it in the can. Moral of the story, get a great team behind you and you can take on any project.
Yes, I can!
Everything seemed very promising going into the editing room, and after watching the first cut, something horrible happened. I didn't like my own film. There's a reason they call the first cut of your film a rough cut, and in the words of Martin Scorsese,
If you don't get physically ill seeing your first rough cut, something's wrong.
so I was hoping it was just a bad edit or something. I liked the look of the film and everything seemed to be how I envisioned it, but something about this film just didn't click with me. It really was style over substance, and it felt kind of hollow. Now I could speculate all day, and I think the decision to not have the protagonist say anything is one of the biggest reasons, but it's like, oh no, what have I done?
You blew it!
But I powered through the rest of post-production, and I knew a few extra elements would make the film a little bit better. Both our composer, Narek Mirza, and our sound designer, Nicholas Paolella, knocked it out of the park. We actually decided to throw in the creepy laugh effect of the Gripper last minute to see if it worked, and it totally did. I then went to my brother Cody for the visual effects, and I put all the pressure on him to make this film look good. And I gotta say, some of these visual effects came out really, really well. So much so that it seemed like the film had reached a whole other level of intensity.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
Basically what I'm saying is everybody did awesome work on this film. Everybody, the cast, the crew, the post team, everybody brought their A game, and it shows. But to be honest with you all, I still don't know how I feel about this film. But that being said, many who have seen the film say they really like it, and perhaps that's mission accomplished. What I really wanted to make was a film about the fears I have for my daughter's future, about what social media has done to young girls, and acknowledging the dangers of seeking fame. I hope that when she watches this film one day, preferably when she's much, much older, she takes to heart the message of the film. But regardless of whatever path you take in life, baby girl, just know your dad loves you. In the end, this was my most challenging short film for many reasons, but it's a welcome and fitting part 3 to this dream trilogy. I also want to give a big shout out to Bruce Clay Incorporated for all of their help in making this film, and if you are interested in any SEO services that can help get more traffic to your site, they're the folks you want to call. Thanks for watching, and if you would like to support me on my filmmaking journey, please be sure to like and subscribe. Until next time, God bless and Godspeed.